Kakadosh Boker Tov, we're continuing with Daf Peidalid Amud Aleph. This is the Mishnah on Peidalid Amud Aleph. Okay? And the Mishnah says as follows. Kol hane'echal b'shor hagadol yachel begdi arach. Any part of the animal, any portion of the animal, which can be eaten by shor hagadol, by a regular big ox, right, which already becomes hard, right? That's what it says. Yachel begdi arach is also considered fitting for eating, also in gdi arach, right, in the small kid, okay? But whatever cannot be eaten in shor hagadol, you cannot be taken to that portion to do with the korban pesach. V'rashek knafayim, right, and also the rashek knafayim, which is on the top of the, what does it say here? We're talking about the parts which is on top of the katef, on top of the shoulder, right? Or schuchim, right? Also, which is a tnucha ozen. This is going to be at the end of the shidra, right? That's what he's saying over here. They could also be counted for, which means that we're going to take them into account regarding the korban pesach, that they could actually be counted to do with eating the korban pesach. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rabba Remi. Rabba, he comes and he asks a contradiction. Yeah, it's not Remi, it's Rami. Yeah, because Remi is a name. Yeah, Rami, he asks a contradiction. Yeah, what's the contradiction? So now we learned in the Mishnah, Kol hane'echal b'shor hagadol yachel begdi arach, v'she'eno ne'echal lo. We just said over here in our Mishnah, what did we just say? We said anything which is eaten in the shor hagadol, in the big shor, in the big bull, you could eat it in the small kid. Remember, the kid is the son of the goat. Yeah? So what happens? It says over here, v'she'eno ne'echal, but if it's not going to be eaten, right? V'she'eno ne'echal, right? Lo, it's not going to be eaten. So ema seifa, let's see the seifa of that Mishnah. Rashek knafayim v'sichsuchim, right? Ve'hahane lo mitachle. When you have the rashek knafayim, which are, how do you call the rashek knafayim? These are like the shoulders. So what do they? But they just call it shoulders in English. And sechuchim. Sechuchim says over here, it's sechuchim sheberosh etzem katef. It's on top of the bone of the shoulder.
Cartilage.
Cartilage. Okay, so cartilage. Cartilage, but that's which one? That's the sechuchim.
And the other is shoulder blades.
Which one is the shoulder blades? The rashek knafayim or the sechuchim?
Rashek knafayim.
Okay. So rashek knafayim are the shoulder blades. Interesting. Okay. And the cartilage. Yeah.
Say differently that even the end of the shoulder blades.
Yeah, that's what he said. And cartilage, exactly. So that's the question. So the question is, at the beginning of the Mishnah, you told me a general rule. What's the general rule? Anything which could be eaten in shor hagadol could be eaten in the gedi arach. Then you tell me the seifa. What's a seifa? That the shoulder blades and the cartilage, these things are not eaten. So how could you tell me at the seifa of the Mishnah that these things are counted towards a korban pesach? And you just told me at the beginning of the Mishnah that whatever's not eaten in the shor hagadol is not eaten now. So answers the Gemara, you're right. It's not a contradiction. Tanaihi. It's a machloket tanaim. What's a machloket tanaim? This is what it means to say. Anything which is eaten in the big ox is going to be eaten in the small kid. But if it's not eaten in shor hagadol, no. And some people say no, that it does. That rashek knafayim v'sichsuchim are going to be eaten, even though it's not usually eaten in the shor hagadol. So you have to add in a yesh omrim, because if not, our Mishnah doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction in the Mishnah in itself. So you have to add in a yesh omrim. Now that you add in a yesh omrim, it's perfect. Okay, so that's answer number one. Answer of, right, that's what he said of the first answer of Rabba. Now there's another answer. The answer of Rava with an aleph. Remember, Rabba is with a hey, and Rava is with an aleph. Okay? So Rava with an aleph comes in and he says, Mahen kitani. What does it mean, Mahen? Vehachi kitani. This is what it means to say. Kol hane'echal b'shor hagadol bishlaka. Anything which could be eaten in the shor hagadol with a lot of cooking, right? Which is with mishul merubeh. Yachel b'gdi arach b'tzli. So it could be eaten in gdi arach when you're going to roast it. Umahen, what are they? Rashek knafayim v'sichuchim. Sechusim, yeah? Which means like this. Basically, what's happening is that these things can be eaten in shor hagadol, but they could only be eaten when you cook it for a very long time. Excessive cooking. That's called shlika. Shlika is not just stam bishul. Pishum merubeh. You have to do a lot of cooking. So this concept, right? It says anything which usually you would have to cook a lot, so therefore you could eat it, right? Even without the cooking, right? But how? Through roasting, because excessive cooking is the same like roasting. The point of this is we're trying to see what can you be counted for eating the Korban Pesach, right? For the kazait. We were talking about what are you eating the kazait of Pesach. So whatever you could eat in the regular the big bowl, you could eat in a small kid. Remember that the Korban Pesach was a 1-year-old. It's a small kid.
We learned yesterday about the Meach HaEtzem. So if we go on Meach HaEtzem, Kal Vachomer will go on anything outside.
No, because Moach HaEtzem, there were things which are actually eaten. People eat the bone marrow. People wouldn't eat these things because you needed excessive cooking. That's what he says. You need excessive cooking. So that's what he's saying. So he's saying some people, again, one more time, since the concept was that it needs excessive cooking, some people just don't eat it. Even nowadays, by the way, you should know, lots of parts of the animal are not eaten. And there are different reasons. Right? No, not only because it was spoiled. There's different reasons. Some of them is some reasons is because of kashrut, some reasons even though there were some of them is access. There's many different things. In a sense, it all depends. Tanya Kavate de Rava, we learned in accordance to Rava, a brighter in accordance to Rava. Anything which could be eaten through excessive cooking in the Shora Gadol, you could eat in the Gdiarach when it's going to be roasted. And what are they? And then the Gemara just finishes off by saying also that the Gidin Arakim, the soft, how did they translate it last night? The soft tendons. The soft tendons are going to be like basar. They're going to be considered like meat. Okay? Now we're going to have a machloket to do with the tendons. Itmar was stated. Gidin shesufan lakshot. What about gidin which become hard? So for example, the gidiat savar, we spoke about this yesterday, right? The gidiat savar, which are basically the tendons of the neck, okay, of the gdi and the tle and everything. At the end, they become hard and therefore it's not food. So Rabbi Yochanan says, you could use them for Pesach, but they're considered meat right now. And as Shaki says, you're not going to be considered them basar to do with the Korban Pesach. Rabbi Yochanan says that you do count them as a Korban Pesach. Why? Because we go right now. Right now, currently, is it fitting for consumption? The answer is yes. Later on, it becomes harder. So that's later on. But right now, it's okay. So that's fine. So he says that Shakish says, we go after the end. And the end result is that really bemet, it's not fitting for consumption. So therefore, it's not considered basar. Okay? Eitvei, we're going to ask the following question. Resh Lakish, Eitvei, Resh Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Resh Lakish comes and he asks the question from Rabbi Yochanan. Kol nechal b'shora gadol, yachel b'gdiarach. Anything which could be eaten b'shora gadol, in a big bull, you're going to eat it b'gdiarach, with a small, right, with a small gdi. So it says mahen, in the small kid. What are they exactly? Rashek nefay v'sechzuchzim. So hani'in, it's mashma only these things, yes. No. Meaning we wanted to make a diuk. The diuk was only these two things, the shoulder blades and the cartilage are the only two things which need excessive cooking, but they're exceptions to the rule. But in a regular case of gidim, regular case of tendons, if they're going to become hard, we don't have the exception to the rule. We're not going to count them.
But they become hard later.
Exactly. But it's much more, what? But it doesn't matter. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, according to Resh Lakish, it says we go after the Batzar Sof, we go after the end result. According to Rabbi Yochanan, yes, we go after right now. So the Gemara answers, Amalei, comes Rabbi Yochanan, he answers to Resh Lakish, Tana Hani vehu adin lehanach. The Braita was teaching, right, these ones, which are basically Rashek and Fayim Vesechusim, and the same halacha would apply to the Gidim, which are going to become hard as well. Hani, right, these other chalakim, my tama, what's the reasoning? Ta'amit achla b'shor gadol b'shaka, because you could eat it with excessive cooking. Hanach nami, so to here, mitachla b'shor gadol b'shaka, so to here, you could eat it with excessive cooking, which means that you could take these tendons, which are on the neck, and at the end they're going to, and you could eat it with excessive cooking. So the same thing. Which one? According to Resh Lakish, he says it is tofes. According to Resh Lakish, it's not tofes. Right? Why? Because he says it's not considered meat. According to Rabbi Yochanan, yes. So we asked the question against him. He said, no, just like by the Shora Gadol, you could do excessive cooking, so to you could do excessive cooking. So Amale Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Avin comes Rabbi Yirmiyah and he tells Rabbi Avin, Ki azalt kamed Rabbi Avhu, and we went in front of Rabbi Avhu, Ramile, we went and we asked him, Miyamar Rabbi Yochanan, does Rabbi Yochanan actually say Gidin shefan lakshot nimnim alem bepesach? That these Gidin that at the end they're going to become hard, we could actually come and we're going to say that you could count them as a korban pesach. Alma batar hashta zinan, which means that we go after right now. Or harosh shel egel arach. What about the skins of the head of the egel arach? Which means that as long as the egel is yonek, right? The or rosho is rach. Interesting. That means as long as this egel, this calf, right, the cabrito, right, this calf is coming and it's nursing from its mother. So therefore, the or rosho, the skin of its head, is very, very soft, and therefore you could eat it just with shtifa. Mamash, you could eat it just with the rinsing it off with the shtifa rotchim of hot water. Maushi tameh, is it going to be mitameh tumat ochlim? Which means, do we go right now, batar hashta, right now, right, currently? And therefore, since right now it's fitting for eating, it's considered ochlim and it's mekabel tumat ochlim. Or do we go at the end? Since at the end it's going to be, if it would stay alive, obviously, it's going to become hardened. So therefore, it's not, and it's not going to be mekabel tumah. So comes Rabbi Yochanan and he answers the Lakish, en mitameh. It's not mitameh. Alma, batar sof azlinan. We go up to the end. So here we have the contradiction. Rabbi Yochanan at the beginning, what do we say? We said there was a machloka between Rabbi Yochanan and Shakish. Rabbi Yochanan says, nimnim aleim pesach, because it's basar. Why? Because we go after now. We don't have to go after the end result. We go right now. The Shakish was the one that says, no, we go after the basof. We go after the end result. Here there's a contradiction. What about the skin, right, of the head, right, the skin of the head of the calf? The skin of the head of the calf is soft, and therefore, as long as it's going to be nursing, it's soft. The second that it stops nursing, it becomes hard. So the question that we ask ourselves is, right, what's going to happen in such a case, right? What's going to happen in such a case where you have, like what we said over here? Yeah, what's going to happen over here? Over here, Rabbi Yochanan comes and he tells you that we go after the batar sof. Yeah? One second. Which one?
Cook it, the point of it was. Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish amar basof. That's why you cannot eat it. Rabbi Yochanan rebuking him says, no, you can cook it also like the
No. We're in the next case. We're in the case of the skins,
but,
of the skin.
But it's the same principle.
No, but it's exact opposite. Because now Rabbi Yochanan is saying the exact opposite. Rabbi Yochanan before went and he said that we go batar hashta. Batar hashta means right now. Over here, Rabbi Yochanan is going batar sof. That's the question. The question is, do you go after currently or the end result? Before, Rabbi Yochanan says that we go batar hashta right now, and therefore it's considered meat, these sinews, because right now they're soft. It's going to become hard. What do I care? I go right now. But then later on, to do with the skin of the head, right now it's fitting for consumption. It should be mitameh tumat ochli. Says Rabbi Yochanan, no. Why not? Because we go batar sof. So it's a contradiction. Rabbi Yochanan, do you go after now, currently, or do you go after the end result? So answers the Gemara, Amalei, Rabbi Yavu comes and he tells Rabbi Avin, Teramalach, the one that asked you this question, lo chash lekimche. He doesn't have any kemach. Yeah? It's a how do you call it? It's a diss. It's like a boom. People think that I'm harsh. Yeah, if they would learn with the people in the Gemara, they would have run away a long time ago. Yeah, what happened? Lo chashav kiche means he doesn't even know about his own flour. Like he's gone. The guy's a hahada be Rabbi Yochanan gabe Shakish. He says 1 second. Rabbi Yochanan retracted, right, and he admitted to Resh Lakish. So we don't go after, right, the beginning. We go after batar sof. V'amarle, and Resh Lakish came and he said, Al takniteni, don't come and start asking me from the ora rosh shel egel, right? Why? Shebilashon yachid ani shonota. Because I'm actually teaching it in a dat yachid, and the halacha is not like that. Which means, he says over here, the Gemara in Chulin says that Shakish came and he asked Rabbi Yochanan, what about the ora rosho of the egel arach? That it is mikabel tumat ochlin. So Rabbi Yochanan comes and he answered him that no, because we go after the sof. So if Rosh Hashanah comes and he asked him from Chulin, so he says it's mefurash or mekabel tumat ochlin. So Rabbi Yochanan himself comes and he answered that is not like, right? That's what he says over here. He says he chazarbo, but he says but that mishnah anyway is like dat yachid. So since it's a dat yachid, so therefore don't come and even ask me a question from there because that's like a single opinion. Meaning some mishnayot, not the majority, but some mishnayot were said in shitat yachid. Shitat yachid means it wasn't the majority of the rabbis that that's what they held. So it's one person. So since it's one person, it could be that we don't even paskin like that mishnah. So that mishnah over there was a one-person mishnah, but we don't actually paskin like that. But really, be'emet Rabbi Yochanan, he retracted. So for what are you asking, Michal? You understand? Meaning that he didn't learn enough. You understand? He didn't learn. Fine. Says a Mishnah. We're on the second Mishnah on Peidalad Amud Aleph, 84a. Second Mishnah. If somebody is going to come and he's going to break the bone of the Korban Pesach, which is a pure Korban Pesach, he gets lashes. We flog him. Yeah, that's the expression. We flog him with 40 lashes, right? It's really 39, but we flog him with 39 lashes. Okay? Fine. Yeah? By the way, you should know the entire concept right, of the makot, we've said this in the past, it's actually very beautiful, is because that by bar mitzvah, right, that's when we start punishing in betin shilmata. So therefore, we always have a chazakah 3 times. So 3 times 13 is 39. That's why we give 39 lashes. Betin shilmala, right, there's a whole concept of karet. Some people say karet is 60, and some people say it's karet is 70. What's the entire concept of the karet? The entire concept of karet is because in betin shilmala, you only punish at the age of 20. So since you only punish at the age of 20, 20, 40, 60, 3 times 20 is 60, and that's why there's an entire concept. That's why there's a whole, some people do, the entire concept after 60, some people do it 70, the entire thing of, that if they weren't chayav karet. But it says over here, so somebody breaks the bone of Korban Pesach, if it's a pure Korban Pesach, he gets flogged 39 lashes. Avala motir, but if somebody's going to leave over from the Korban Pesach batahor, right, or shover batameh, he's going to break the bone of a Korban Pesach, which is tameh, he does not get lashes. Okay, he doesn't get the 40 lashes. So says the Gemara, Bishlama motir batahor. I understand why, if somebody's going to leave over a pure Korban Pesach, that they're not going to get lashes. The Tanya we already learned in a Braita. This is, what is this called? One more time, I'll read to you the pasuk. Don't leave over it until the morning. But if you do leave it over until the morning, right? What is this called? Anybody knows? What's this called?
Positive commandment.
Very good. Lav hanitak la'aseh. A negative commandment which is fixed by a positive commandment. Right? Lav hanitak la'aseh. And any negative commandment which is fixed by a positive commandment, you never get lashes. For example, stealing. It says lo tigzol, you're not allowed to steal. But right after saying lo tigzol, what does it say? You have to return that which you stole. So therefore, since there's a concept of returning that which you stole, if a person comes and he steals, he will never get lashes. And the reason why, but since you could always fix it up by returning it, so therefore it's a lavanitak la'aseh, a negative commandment which is fixed by a positive. You do not get flogged. You don't get lashes. So to here, by notar, it makes sense. It says lo tiru menu boker, which is the negative commandment. But then it says immediately afterwards, if you do leave it over, burn it in a fire. That's a positive. So therefore, it's a negative which is fixed by a positive. You don't get lashes. Right? Thank you, John Paul. Yeah. So it says, it's coming to give us a positive commandment after a negative commandment. Okay? Lomar, to tell you, shen loke. You don't get the lashes. Why? Because it's a nitak la'aseh. It's fixed by a positive commandment. These are the words of Yehuda. Rabbi Yaakov says, yeah, lo min Hashem uzeh. Yeah, this is not the reason. Meaning that's not the kind of reason why you don't get lashes. Ela mishun davar lelav shema maseh. It's not an action. Right? Remember, one more time. Usually, when do people get lashes? People get lashes if you do a negative commandment, but it has an action. If it's a lav she'en bo ma'aseh, which means that there's no action on that which you're doing, you're just doing a shev al taseh, you don't get lashes. If a person comes and they sat down and they just left over, did they do an action in leaving it over? They didn't do any action. They just left it over. So in such a case, it's called lav she'en bo ma'aseh. A lav, a negative commandment that does not have an action. And any negative commandment that does not have an action, you don't get lashes. Meaning we only give you palos, we only give you lashes if you do an action, if you're active. If you're inactive or you're passive, that's the word in English, if you're passive, you don't get lashes. It's a lav shem bo ma'aseh. So comes Rabbi Yaakov and he says it's another reason. It's not because of lav anita klaseh, it's lav shem bo ma'aseh. And look in a lav. Ela shover batameh menala. And so says the Gemara, we understand notar. So by notar, by leftovers, 2 reasons why you don't get lashes. Either because it's fixed by a positive commandment, or because it's a negative commandment that does not have an action. It's passive. But breaking the bone, that's an act. You're being proactive. You're doing something. So breaking the bone, but tameh, an impure animal. How do we know that you don't get lashes? And so the Gemara, when it says you're not allowed to break the bone of the Korban Pesach, that's only the kosher Korban Pesach. If the Korban Pesach was not kosher, so you're allowed to. So therefore, you don't get lashes. So that's the reasoning of the Damakra. That's what he says over here. Okay? Nekuda. We learned in the Braita. What does it mean? Let's bo b'kasher v'lo b'pasul. Right? That's the Tanna Kama. The Tanna Kama says only in a kosher animal. You're not allowed to. Only in a kosher Korban Pesach, you're not allowed to break the bones. But if it's not a kosher Korban Pesach, you're allowed to. Rabbi says it says in one house you have to eat it, and then it says you're not allowed to break the bones. Anything which is, since it's a proximity, it's a it's a juxtaposition, which means it's brought close together. I'm going to read them together. Anything which could be eaten in the house, you have an isur, don't break the bone. But anything which cannot be eaten in the house, you don't have the isur of breaking the bone. So therefore, since it's korban pesach, it's tameh, and you cannot obviously eat it, that's why there's no problem of breaking the bone. Not because we're learning from the word bo only in the kosher, not in the not kosher, but just because it's written beside the concept of you have to eat it. So anything which is fitting for eating, you have an isur of breaking the bone. If it's not fitting for eating, there's no isur of breaking the bone. My benai, what is the difference between the two opinions, whether between Tanakama or Rebbe? So he says, Rabbi Yirmiyah says, Pesach haba b'tumah ika benai. When the korban pesach is brought b'tumah. If you remember, we already learned before, if you have the majority of the kahal or the entire kahal or majority of the kahal, that they are tmeim, what do? You bring the korban pesach. Do you eat it?
Yeah.
Yes, you also eat the korban pesach.
Yeah,
so therefore, very good. So according to the Shita of Rebbe, the fact that you could still eat the korban pesach, it's tameh. But if you break the bones, you're going to be chayav, lashes. But according to the Tanakama, since it says betzem lo tishbru bo, that you're not allowed to break the bones by it and only by a kosher one, not by no kosher, even though you could still eat it, you still have an averah of, you don't have an averah of breaking the bones because it's not kosher. So that's an nafkamina, that's a difference, a practical difference between both of them. According to the mandamar, that it's kasher, hai pasul. This one is not a kosher korban pesach. And according to the mandamar, haroi lachila, that it's going to be fitting for eating, hai nami haroi lachila, it is fitting for eating. So since it's fitting for eating, it's still going to be chayav as well. Okay, fine. Next, Gemara, we're on Peidalad Amubet, 84b. Put on your seatbelts, please, because it is a long daf. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. We were getting you prepared. Right? Rabbi Yosef Omer, Rabbi Yosef says, yeah, Ki hai gavna, in this case, which is a Pesach, which is going to be a Korban Pesach, which is going to be brought betuma. Techule alma, according to everybody, embo mishum shvirat etzem. There's no shvirat etzem. Te Rebbe la kule kati. Because Rebbe, right, he comes to be mekel on the Tanakama, which means he comes to be lenient on the Tanakama, and the Pesach is not rawi la'achila. There's no shvirat etzem, even if it's going to be kosher. Okay, which means that there's no problem of the shvirat etzem. There's no problem of the breaking of the bone. Okay, that's what he's trying to say over here. You understand what happened? Yeah. One more time. A Pesach which is coming betuma. A Pesach which is coming betuma. Okay, so he says over here, according to everybody, there's no problem of breaking the bones. The Rebbe la kulekati, because Rebbe comes and he was actually being mekel on the Tanakama. That in the Pesach, which is not fitting for eating, there's no isur of breaking the bones, right? However, though, he's going to be modet to the Tanakama, that a Pesach pasul, which it is fitting for eating, there's no isur of shvirat etzim. Vehai hapasulu, this is pasul. It's just that you got an exception to the rule. Like basically, we give you a special permission. You're allowed to bring a betuma, but really, be'emet, it's pasul.
Why? Because they're in tuma?
Yeah, they're in tuma.
But what is the connection? The korban itself is supposed to be not with tuma. The fact that they're in tuma.
When they are in tuma, they automatically make the korban pesach tameh.
Yeah, but you don't.
It is tameh.
הוא טמא מרוחניות, הוא לא טמא כי הוא טמא בעצמו.
No, הוא טמא בעצמו. The second, if you are tameh, I don't understand you. How do you eat the korban pesach? How do you bring the korban pesach?
Because the person is טמא.
Exactly. So the person made the korban pesach tameh.
באמת הוא כשר, הוא לא, אין בו פגם, אין לו כלום.
Doesn't matter, but that's tameh. Tameh is spiritual. Tameh is spiritual. It's not a physical defect. Tum'ah is not a physical defect. It's a spiritual defect.
So הם עושים אותו טמא.
Automatically. When you bring him, they used to bring them. How do you bring it?
So now you can break them. So now that's it.
That's what we're saying. Ella. Yeah, so he says here, Ella. It had a moment which is going to be kosher, and then it became pasul. The mandamar, according to the one mandamar that says it's kasher, hakasher, it was kosher, but according to the mandamar that's rawi la'achila, hahash lav rawi la'achila, but here it's not rawi la'achila, and therefore there's not going to be any problem of shvirat etzem, which means that now we're changing the pshat of Rebbe. We thought that the entire concept was whether it was fitting for eating or not fitting for eating. Okay, that's what we thought. Okay. Here. So once upon a time it was kosher, and now it became not kosher. Why did it become not kosher? But now it became tameh. So therefore, since it had lo shata kosher, and then it became pasul because of, for example, leftovers, right? So according to the mandamar, this is kosher. But according to the mandamar, they're fitting for eating. Right now, it's not fitting for eating, and therefore there's no isur of shvirat etzem. So therefore, according to this shita, even though everybody could eat this korban pesach that became tameh, there's no isur of breaking the bone. The machloka between them was not to do with the korban pesach break the bone, because remember, Rebbe was a leniency, not a stringency. So when is the concept? To do with notar, leftovers. because leftovers at once upon a time had a shata kosher. It had a time that it was kosher, right? Remember, shata kosher, right? If you just remember it just in English, it's very simple. Shata kosher. Kosher is kosher. It had a moment that it was fitting. It had a moment which was kosher, and therefore there's no problem. Okay? One second. Yeah, let's try to, yeah? Okay. Just hold the questions until the end, and we're going to. Okay, Abaye comes and he says, okay, Kule Alma, according to everybody, Kol Ki Gavna, in any case, Embo Mishum Shvirat Etzem, there's no problem of breaking the bones. My Tama, what's the reasoning? Right? Hashta Miyata Pasulu. Right now it's Pasul. Ela Shvirat Etzem Ibeod Yom. But the concept of Shvirat Etzem is only during the day, when it's not Shata Achila Ikebenayu. What does that mean? Lemandam, according to the Tanakama, that he said that the Shvirat Etzem is only by a Pesach, which is kasher, it is kosher during the day. Lemandamar, but according to the Mandamar, that it has to be fitting for achila, hashalav bar achila. It's not bar achila, which means that we're not talking about at the time of the eating of the korban pesach. We're talking about the time of bringing the korban pesach. The time of the bringing of the korban pesach, you can't eat it yet. You're only allowed to eat it at nighttime, but it's kosher. So therefore, according to the Mandamar, that has to be a kosher korban. It's a kosher korban. But according to the Mandamar, there has to be a time of eating the korban pesach. Right now, it's not a time of eating the korban pesach. Okay, so Meitvei, so now we're going to ask on Abaye, what he just said right now. Rebbe says, now we're going to ask from the marrow, right? We're talking about the marrow in the head. But we're not going to talk about the moach, which is in the kulit. How do you translate kulit in English? It's like of the thigh bone, but I don't know how you translate.
But you don't have access.
Thigh bone, that's right.
Thigh bone. Okay, very good. So thigh bone. Okay, very good. So the thigh bone, right? What's the reasoning why by the moach shebarosh we are going to count? Because you could take it out even without breaking any type of bones. Meaning you have access to it. You could take it out without breaking anything. Now, if you're going to tell me now that you could break it during the day, so break it during the day. Just take out the moach, and then count people for it. Meaning, if according to you, you're allowed to break it before eating it, because right now there's no isur, because there's no eating of it, so break it during the day, right? Meaning the Erev Pesach, right? It's still not the time of eating it. Break the bones, take out all the moach, and now it's fitting for consumption. There's an isur. No, the isur of breaking bones is only when it's fitting for eating. Fitting for eating is only nighttime. Again, according to Tanakama, it's the kosher. So kosher, it's always the problem of breaking bones. But according to the second opinion of Rebbe, that he said that the only issue of breaking bones was only when it's the time of eating, according to Abaye, again, so just break the bones during the day, before it's the time of eating. Why not?
But it's not, because it's not the essence. The essence is not exactly the time. The essence is kosher.
That's a shita of Rebbe. Shita of Rebbe has nothing to do with kosher or not kosher. It has to do with time of eating, not eating. It's brought from a pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'bayit echad yachel," right? Ve'etzem lo tishbru bo. So when you could eat it, don't break the bones. If you cannot eat it, you don't break. You're allowed to break the bones.
It's very.
Okay, fine. So Amar Alecha Abaye is going to come and he's going to tell you. V'letamech, and according to your reasoning, Mishecha Nami, also when it becomes nighttime, nighti gumarta v'nechutale, bring a gachelet, which is like burning coals, v'nechutale, place it on the thigh bone, v'nikla, and just burn it, right, until it makes a hole. V'nipka l'mochtiden, and just take out the, meaning, you're right, don't break the bones. Put a coal on it. The coal is going to burn it, and then what's going to happen is it's going to open it up, and then just take out the moach. Right? Well, yeah, it's like a grammar, yeah. And then just the hatari was learned. If you're going to come and burn the bones, or you're going to cut the gidin, right? There's no problem of shvirat etzim, because srefa is not called shvira. Burning is not called breaking. You understand? So what are you going to say? Abaye says mishum peka. What does it mean peka? Because maybe because of the heat, the etzim will come and it will burst, right? It will how do you call it? Split. It will split, right? And therefore, it's not srifa. That is shvira, which means sometimes depends how you do it. Sometimes you burn something and it just like it makes a hole, it makes a dent. Other times you put something to burn and it splits. The splitting is shvira. That's a problem. Okay, but that is breaking. Rava says no. Mishum said kochi. It's because you're not allowed to get rid of kochi. The kamafsi lebiyadam, because you're coming, you're destroying it with your hands, which means you're losing the muach with your own hands because you're putting it there. Because then maybe it's not only going to just burn the bone, because the bones anyway you don't do anything with it, but the muach inside the bones. Meaning you're going to put the burning coal there. It's going to start making an incision. It's going to start opening up. But maybe it could be that all of a sudden it's going to capture. It's going to also start burning the muach, and the muach is good food. So you're getting rid of kochin. You're not allowed to do that with your hands. Okay. Also during the day, even though midoraita it's permitted to eat, the chachamim come and say that also it's going to be prohibited. It's a gezerah that if you're going to permit breaking the bones during the day, so then you're going to break the bones also in the nighttime, and then you do have the issur of breaking the bones. Right? That means according to this shita, breaking the bones during the day, be'emet, is 100% permitted. It's only assuming derabanan because of the nighttime. Since in the nighttime you're not allowed to midoraita to break the bones, so during the day you're not allowed to midorabanan to break the bones, just in case you're going to do it as well. Okay, another shita, okay, that is pushing off Abaye. It was the fourth shita. Rav Papa comes and he says, in such a case, everyone holds that there is a problem of breaking the bone. My tama, what's the reasoning? In the nighttime, it is fitting for eating. Ella, but rather, when we're talking about the ever, the limb of a korban pesach that a little bit came out of it, mandam, according to the mandam kasher, right? A kasher who it's going to be kosher. But according to the mandam rawi lachila, that it's going to be fitting for eating, haylav barachila who it's not fitting for eating. So Ketanya, as we learned in the Braita, Rabbi Yishmael ben Yochel ben Roka Omer, Yishmael the son of Yochel ben Roka says, ever shiatza miksato, an ever, that part of the ever, meaning part of the limb came out of Yerushalayim, ushvaro, and you broke it. There's no problem with shvirat etzem, which means that according to the shita, if the ever came out of the walls of Yerushalayim, and now you have to cut the part off, right? Because you only have to cut off the part which actually went outside, because that part you're not allowed to eat it anymore. So that part, once it already comes out, now it's not fitting for eating anymore. So therefore, you're allowed to break it. Okay, everyone understood what happened. The korban pesach, you have to eat it inside of Yerushalayim. What happens is somebody went and they took it out, but they didn't take out the entire limb. They only took out part of it. So only the part that they took out, you have to cut it, and that's going to be a asur b'achila. So the fact that now you already have a heter of cutting it, because now you're not allowed to eat that part, so now there's no problem of breaking the bones. Rav Sheshat Bered de Ravidi Aman. Rav Sheshat Bered de Ravidi comes and he brings a fifth one. We're going to bring here. There's 6, 7, 8. There's going to be 8 pirushim. Okay, so now we're on the fifth one. Rav Sheshat, the son of Ravidi, comes and he says, "Kol ki gavna de kule alma emo mishum shvirat etzem." Really, be'emet, there's no problem with shvirat etzem. The high ever hapsul, but this ever is pasul. Ela shvirat etzem benah ikamnahu. The shvirat etzem is only in something which is raw. Why? Manda amar kasher. According to the manda amar kasher, this is still kosher, and therefore there's a problem with shvirat etzem. But manda amar that it has to be fitting for eating, it's not fitting for eating yet because you still didn't roast it. Remember that the korban pesach has to be tzali. Has to be roasted. You're not allowed to eat it when it's raw, right? Or if it's cooked. It has to be roasted. It has to be barbecue. So now what happens is, if right now, according to the shita that it's kosher, it's kosher. Whether it's raw, it's all kosher now, and you could still roast it. But according to the mandam are fitting for eating, it's not fitting for eating. So that's why that's enough kamina between them when it's raw. So again, remember, every single time we're trying to bring other nafkaminas between whether the entire concept is because it's kosher or because it's fitting for eating. This was the other answer, the fifth answer. Rav Nachman Yitzchak comes and he says another answer. Kol ki gavna yesh bo mishum shvirat etzem. No, even when it's raw, there is a problem with shvirat etzem. My time, what's the reason? Because it's fitting for eating. The mitzvah because you could roast it and then you're going to eat it. Ela shvirat ha'aliyah b'ikabenah. But really between them, the answer between them is the breaking of the zanav. Right, the zanav aseh. The zanav is a tail. Right, many times, many people they come and they eat the tail. Correct? Of course, it's one of the best parts. Yeah, oxtail. Yeah, I got it now all the time. You get the oxtail. Yeah, it's something incredible. Yeah, it's very, very good by the way. Yeah, you put it on the grill. I put it in the chamin. I put it in the chamin. I put it in the chamin. The chamin. Yeah, the beef one. Yeah, the lamb you put on the grill. Okay. No, but this one is incredible by the way. You know. We put in the chamin, and it's the best. First of all, the taste of the chamin is very good because it has the bones. Plus, it has the meat.
Some people like it. There is no in between.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, the lamb. That's the problem with it.
No, but don't tell people that it's an oxtail.
No.
Don't tell
My
people.
wife smells it, she doesn't like it. Yes. Always.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, it's yeah. You don't say anything. You just serve it to them. I had that, by the way. You know, with a lot of people. The tongue. Don't tell them what it is. What is it? Meat. They love it. After you tell them, no. You tell them beforehand they hate tongue. All of a sudden they go, oh, you know what? It's actually good. You understand why? Because they can't see it that way.
First time I took my kids to Israel, whenever I had kids, my mom, liver, this, that, levavot, heart. They eating. I said, do you know what you eat? What? No, we don't want to eat it.
Oh, you don't tell them. After a while that they're eating and eating, then you tell them. Then it's okay.
Then we took them to the market. I said, you see it cook, see it raw.
Yeah, that's the way it is. So this was now the sixth answer. So the sixth answer is the tail. So it says now that's the difference between the mandamar. According to the mandamar kasher, it's kasher. The part of the tail is kasher. But according to the mandamar fitting for eating, it's not fitting for eating. Why? Because the tail of the sheep goes to the mizbeach. It doesn't go to us. So therefore, there's no yisur of shvirat etzem. Which means if you're going to tell me that the yisur of breaking the bone is because it's kosher, it's kosher. But if you're going to tell me the yisur of the breaking bone is only fitting for eating, you don't eat the tail. So it means according to that, if I break the tail, there's no problem. If I break the bones of the tail, there's no problem. Okay? Seventh answer, Rav Ashi says, Kol Gavna, really be'emet, there is a problem of breaking the bones, also the aliyah of the tail. Sorry, there's no problem of breaking the bones. But it's not fitting for eating at all. But rather, the difference between them is if you have a limb that has less than a kazait. According to the mandamar kasher, it's kosher. But according to the mandamar fitting for eating, it's not fitting for eating because it doesn't have a kazait. So because of that, there's no problem of breaking the bone. Ravina comes and he says the eighth answer. In any case over here, there's no problem with shvirat etzem. You need shvirat achila. But rather, when we have an ever which does not have a kazait or basar in this place, and you do have a kazait basar in another place, right? That's what we have the difference between them. According to the mandamar kasher, hakasheru, it is kosher. But according to the mandamar raui la'achila, that it's going to be fitting for eating. Ba'inan shiur achila bimkom shvira. You need the fitting for eating in a place for achila, in a place of breaking, sorry. But you don't have it, which means that the basar has to be, right now you don't have a kazait basar in the place of the breaking, not in the meat, in the place of the breaking. So because of that, that's why there's no problem of a shvirat etzem. The shvirat etzem has to be in a place where there's, the place where you're breaking has to have a kazait, not the entire piece of meat, the place where you're breaking. Okay? So now that we brought down the 8 different opinions in the Gemara, Tanya, we learned in a Braita, we actually learned in a Braita like 4 of these opinions. The Tanya was learned in a Braita. Rabbi says, right? In one house, you're going to eat it and you're not allowed to break the bones. Why are they brought together? Al kasheru chayav ve'eno chayav. Right? If it's going to be kosher, you're going to be chayav on breaking the bones. If it's not going to be kosher, you're not going to be chayav on breaking the bones. Right? If it had a shata kosher and it became pasul during the time of eating, meaning it was kosher once upon a time and then it became pasul during the time of eating, there's no problem with shvirat etzem. That was like the pirush of Rav Yosef. Or yesh wo shir achila, it has a shir of achila kazai. There is a problem with shvirat etzem. If it doesn't have a shir of achila, there's no problem of shvirat etzem. That's the pshat of Ravina or Rav Ashi. If it's fitting for the mizbeach, for example, the tail, and there's no problem breaking the bone, right? Which is like the pirush of Nachman bar Yitzchak. B'shat achila, there is a problem of breaking the bone. Shelo b'shat achila, if it's not going to be the time of eating, right? That's like the pirush of Abaye. So basically, 4 out of the 8 opinions is brought mifurash in the Braita that this is like the shita of Rebbe. Remember, one more time, let's do a chazara. Rebbe comes and he says that not like the Tanakama. Tanakama comes and he says, if it's kosher, there's a problem of breaking the bones. Not kosher, no problem breaking the bones. Rebbe comes and he says, nothing to do with kosher, not kosher, has to do with fitting for eating or not fitting for eating. Then we had 8 different opinions in Rebbe. What does that mean, fitting for eating? Are we talking about whether the bones have a kazait, doesn't have a kazait? We're talking about the tail. We're talking about whether it's the zman, whether it's going to be Erev Pesach or not. There was 8 different opinions in the Gemara. So now the Gemara just brings down a Braita that we have a proof to 4 out of them. 4 out of the 8 were actually brought down the Furush and the Braita that these are the differences with the opinion. The nafkamina is because you're holding whether it's going to be fitting for eating or not. Okay? Now we're going to bring a machloket to that which we mentioned before. Itmar, it was stated, Ever she'en alav kazait basar b'makom zeh, an ever that does not have a kazait basar in one place, yesh alav kazait b'makom acher, but you do have a kazait basar in another place. Rabbi Yochanan says there is an isur of breaking the bone. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says there's no isur of breaking the bone. Either Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says Rabbi Yochanan asks Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, ve'etzem lo tishbru bo. What does it mean etzem lo tishbru bo? Echad etzem sheyesh alav kazait basar, ve'echad etzem she'en alav kazait basar. Whether it has a kazait basar or not, right? And what does it mean it doesn't have kazait basar? If you're going to tell me that it doesn't have a kazait basar b'chlal, why is there any surah of shvirat etzem? That's according to everybody. But rather, this is what it means to say. One that has kazai basar in this place, so the place where you're going to break it, and one that does not have a kazai basar in the place so that you're going to break it. That's going to be the question. There is an isur shvira or not. So Amalei comes and Rabbi Shimon Lakish and he tells Rabbi Yochanan, the Lakish answers, right? Pehei Amud Aleph on the top, 85A1 on the top. Lo. Really, be'emet, there's no isur, right? Unless if you have kazai basar in the place of the breaking it. Behachi kama, this is what it means to say. Echad etzem sheyesh alav kazai basar b'chutz. Whether it's got an etzem that has a kazai basar on the outside, or there's an etzem that does not have a kazai basar on the outside, but it does have a kazai basar mibifnim on the inside. on the place of the breaking it, you're not allowed to break it because of the achilat hamoach. It's considered eating. And then obviously we're going to bring a proof to this that what you said, Bezat Hashem, that we're going to continue on Sunday, Bezat Hashem.